in our
Yeah.
profession, there's a lot of cons about like, we get to pay for our own health insurance and like
Yay.
there's so many things that are difficult about it, but the flexibility and the freedom is one thing that is just so beautiful and allows for so much possibility. And if you don't take advantage of it in some way, it feels like a tragedy because it's one of the perks of the field.
Hi, I'm Kim Tolson and I'm the traveling therapist. It's my passion to teach therapists how to navigate online private practices and multiple income streams so they can travel the world. I'm a digital nomad with a virtual insurance-based private therapy practice and a multi-six-figure coaching business. I'm obsessed with entrepreneurship and developing tools that can help therapists live an adventurous lifestyle. In this podcast, I will discuss my journey as a digital nomad. I'll chat with other traveling therapists and help you navigate the complexities of running an online insurance-based practice. I'm so glad to have you with me on this journey. Going in-network with insurance can be tough. For example, waiting a year to get credentialed in some cases. Filing all the right paperwork is time-consuming and tedious, and even after you're done, it can take months to get credentialed and start seeing clients. That's why Alma makes it easy and financially rewarding to accept insurance. When you join the insurance program, you can get credentialed within 45 days and access to enhanced reimbursement rates. They also handle all the paperwork from eligibility checks to claim submissions, and they guarantee payment within 2 weeks of each appointment. Once you've joined Alma's insurance program, you can see clients in your state of licensure regardless of where you're working from. This is particularly exciting for me as a traveling therapist, as I know it is probably for you too. You can literally be anywhere and still see your clients through Alma. Learn more about building a thriving private practice with Alma at helloalma.com/Kim. That's helloalma.com/KYM to get started.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Traveling Therapist Podcast. I'm really excited today. We have Kaylee Friedman here with us. She's a cool guest, you guys. I'm excited. She's got a really cool background, but the thing we're going to talk about today is sort of a twist on this traveling therapist lifestyle thing. So I would just like to introduce you, Kaylee, and say hello, welcome. And I always start out with the same question, and that's how did you go from being a traditional therapist to a traveling therapist?
Thank you for having me. I'm excited about this conversation. I started working right before COVID. I graduated just before COVID. And so I did all my hours online, and I have more experience being an online telehealth therapist than an in-person therapist because of the timing of that. And so it was kind of a natural transition. After COVID ended, I decided, well, when did COVID really end?
But once it ended, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. But once people started to go back to in-person, I decided to peace out and move from New Jersey, where I had gone to school and got my license, to Los Angeles. Okay. And so I decided to just stay completely telehealth and live where I wanted to live. And it wasn't necessarily traveling, but it was a different area that I wanted to be in. And so from then on, it just didn't make sense to go back to in-person. I love the accessibility and the flexibility and just stuck with it.
Love that. Yeah. So you're licensed in California, or where's your?
No. Oh, okay. So I'm licensed in New Jersey only.
Oh,
and then I just
only. Cool.
do coaching here and there. And I have a lot of other side hustles. I've got my yoga, my Reiki, mindfulness facilitation and teaching.
I love that. Yeah. Okay. So really cool. So you've never even really had the in-office experience. So always telehealth. So it's probably pretty comfortable just to say, okay, I could do this from anywhere. But let's talk about your story. So you're a solo traveler, right? Kind of doing this thing on your own. So could you just kind of maybe fill the audience in on what your adventures have been like so far. Because right now you're in Honolulu, I think you said before we hit record, you said you're in Honolulu, which I think is super cool. But maybe we could share a little bit about how you've been traveling and you're doing the solo and then your experience with it, because it's a little bit different than what I typically hear on the podcast.
Yeah. So I decided to go on vacation to Maui with my mom a few months ago. And we were there and I just never went back. So it was never really intentional. And so we're in Maui and I had some really beautiful spiritual experiences and going through a lot of transitions in my personal life. And I was there and it was gorgeous. And I met this woman who had a studio behind her house, which just happened to be free. And it felt kind of like a universe nudging me towards an experience. So I didn't think too much about it. I just intuitively said yes. And I decided to just stay. I had my computer with me. Why not? I can work from anywhere. I'll just get up real early in the morning because of the time difference.
Yeah.
And so I was there in Maui, and then I decided to find another place to stay. I ended up finding this dog house sitting app where you can exchange house sitting for a free place to stay, essentially. I hopped over.
Is this Trusted House Sitters?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. The person I interviewed last week is also using this. And I'm like, I have to sign up for this thing. How am I not using this? Yeah. Yeah. But sorry to interrupt.
It's great. No, it's great. Yeah. So I have a little buddy to hang out with, which is nice. But my thinking about it when I started it was freedom and kind of eat, pray, love vibes and trusting the universe and flowing with whatever opportunities arise. And in practice, I started to feel like this sucks. This is boring. I'm bored. I am traveling alone. I have no friends here. I don't have a car, so it's hard to get around, I could have rented a car, but I just felt very isolated. And I expected to have this freeing, expansive experience. And instead, what it ended up being was a time to get really honest with myself and do a lot of self-reflection and strip my life of a lot of distractions and reflect and figure out some truths about myself. So it's been productive. But I wouldn't say that it was fun because I'm so extroverted. I need to be with people and around people. And, I've put myself out there. I've gone to meetups. I talked to some like random people at the dog park. I've put effort into connecting. But when you're traveling, you're also creating temporary relationships, which feels different for you and the other person. Maybe you don't want to invest so much emotional labor into that. And so I just decided this is not for me.
Yeah.
It's beautiful and it's been productive, but I miss my people. I miss my community. I miss grounding and rooting in. And I felt a little self-judgment about it. Like, you're not independent, but I've accepted, this is just not really in alignment, this lifestyle.
I love that. Because, for example, I just got off like a coaching call and the person was trying to get started with the traveling therapist thing. And she's like, so how do people do this? And I'm like, it's really up to you. Like, you have to figure out what works best for you. Like, this digital nomad life that I'm living, I was telling Kaylee before I hit record, I do not think I could do this by myself. Like, as a solo traveler, I don't think I'd like it because I am extroverted and I like to have somebody to share my experiences with. And, to me, I don't know. I have a lot of respect for people that just can travel the whole world by themselves and be totally cool with it. Cause I don't know I really don't know if I could do that. So I can really relate to what you're saying. Like if I was single and I don't know if I would be living the same lifestyle, so I think it's super interesting to bring this topic up and just talk about it. I wonder maybe if it's a different time of your life, maybe if you're not in this place of really deep self-reflection and trying to figure things out or whatever, maybe it would be different. I don't know, it's just so interesting. Yeah. So when did
Yeah.
you figure that part out? When was it like, what, this sucks?
It took
and
me
what are you going to do about it?
Right. It took me like a solid, like 3 weeks to a month probably to accept that fully.
Yeah.
I kept thinking, okay, it's just a transition and transitions are hard. And I'll get used to the area and I'll go to some meetups and I'll meet some people and let me figure out the lay of the land. And okay, that's not working. Let's get a routine going. Like routines are grounding. So I was really trying to manage the experience and make it feel different. And then once I did find, there was a certain level of activation in the beginning. My nervous system was not grounded and I was a little panicky. And what did I just do? And I'm here all by myself. So once it was hard. But once I got through that and I felt regulated and I still wasn't enjoying myself, then that's when I kind of accepted, okay, like it's okay if this isn't for me. And that's a huge learning in my life in general, because I am somebody who always wants to dive deep and do the work and grow and rise to the occasion and get out of my comfort zone, because growth is one of my most important values. As I've been through more and more in my life, I am starting to come to a place where I don't want to rise to the challenge. I don't feel like doing the work. I feel like staying in my comfort zone. I feel like, respecting my nervous system and staying in my window of tolerance and not pushing myself into a place of anxiety. And I can grow in soft, gentle, slower paced ways, and it still counts and matters. And so this accepting that this isn't for me has been a part of that.
Oh, I love that so much. I really do. As we were saying before, this is part of figuring out what kind of traveling therapist you want to be. It's like, okay, so you're realizing you want to take it slow. You don't want to just jump in and be gone from everybody you love, but maybe you want to go to an island for 3 weeks a year from now. It's totally cool. Maybe you want to go and you don't want to work while you're there. That's okay too. Just like this whole process of discovery and just figuring out like, what does this mean to me? Because, when I used to do it, I used to cram all my clients in, and then I would take a week off, and I would do that 8 times a year, and then I was like,
wow,
I had to figure out, like you're saying, for myself, it's like, okay, this like come back and cram, and then take a break. Like that felt awful to me, trying to do it that way. So it really is like, there is some self exploration around this, like a little trial and error. Like, okay, so living in Maui by yourself, or Honolulu now by yourself, and with a dog or whatever, it just isn't going to work for you. And I love that. I really do.
It's been good to learn that I can work from anywhere and I can handle the time difference. And it does open up some possibility. I think I would like this a lot more if I had a travel buddy and we planned an experience we wanted to have intentionally ahead of time, rather than this whole eat, pray, love, let's just see what happens, open-ended experience. I think would feel more excited if I was a little more structured and there were things I wanted to do and experience while I was there and work at the same time. I resonate with what you said about smushing everybody in and then having no sessions. I actually really find my sessions to be grounding for myself when I'm traveling, because I'm seeing people that I'm familiar with, and the routine of that, and being in contact with people that I feel like I know in my life actually feels grounding for my nervous system.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It really does. Because I mean, I totally relate because I've had clients that I have clients now that I've seen for probably, I don't know, at least one I know for 12 years, like on and off, So
Wow. Yeah.
she's my client and we have the healthy boundary there, but it is like an old friend in a way. And it's like, oh, I'm so glad to see you, and it does feel
Exactly.
connected to like my whole life, like I had her in my brick and mortar office. I actually had her in an outpatient rehab before I even went to my brick and mortar. And then, it's my telehealth
Wow.
practice and now my traveling practice. And so I totally get that. I had never really thought of that, but it does help you feel a little bit connected when you're just like willy-nilly, like in a different place. Like we're in Bend, Oregon right now. We're here for 2 weeks, but you do go through that dysregulation and need some like stabilization in different ways. So that definitely is a way to do that. I hadn't thought of that before.
Yeah. It's interesting. Like, I think we have this narrative in our field that we're not supposed to get anything out of this.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, I
it's
love
not
that.
supposed to be for us in any way. We're just selfless,
Yes.
like self-compassion machines or
Yes.
other compassion machines. And I had my therapist check me on that early in my career. I think in my internship, actually, like,
Nice.
you're allowed to enjoy your work, you're allowed to get something from your clients, you're allowed to receive. This is allowed to be reciprocal. It's actually more beautiful and effective for everyone if you're in relationship with people.
Oh, I love that. Yes. Oh, just giving us permission to be able to say that.
Right? Like, it's not
Yeah.
bad if you enjoy and get something from your clients. Like, I feel like my clients give me sermons sometimes. Like, I learn
Yes.
so much from them and I get grounded from our sessions too.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. How many times have you been in a session and somebody says something? It's like, oh my God, are they in my brain?
I'm like, let
Like,
me write that down. That's a good quote for
yeah,
me. I'm going to journal about that later. That
I love
happens when
that.
you're doing healing work because there's so many universal themes to being human.
Absolutely. Oh, I love that so much. Yeah. Uh-huh. So what's your plan now that you've discovered this? Is it, I'm going to wrap up this thing in Honolulu and I'm going to head back home, or like how are you going to navigate like the unwinding of this whole thing and kind of go back to what feels comfortable, or try to figure out what feels comfortable for you?
Mm. So my plan is I'm going home next week. Yeah, so I'm leaving Honolulu. I'm going back to LA. I'm actually, yeah, a lot of transitions are happening. I'm actually like de-escalating a relationship, going through a breakup. Uh,
Oh, gotcha.
so I'm going to be moving at some point this summer. And I'm thinking that I'm going to try to move into a really like downsize and move somewhere really simple
Mm-hmm.
and more affordable that I can leave when I do want to travel again, and I can still feel like I have home waiting for me and a grounded nurturing place that I can return to. And then I think I might experiment with traveling for work. So my next
Oh,
goal for myself is to get some gigs facilitating, running retreats, doing workshops, and then traveling to a place in order to facilitate and then creating a trip around that kind of gig.
love
And
that.
then, for like a few weeks here and there. I think that
Mm-hmm.
will feel grounded because I'm also going for a purpose and there will be people expecting me to interact with.
Yes. Oh,
That's my
yeah.
goal. Yeah.
That's amazing. Oh, I love that idea. Yeah. Because you mentioned you have side hustles. So would you talk about that a little bit? Like how you're integrating that
Yeah.
stuff into your clinical work and how you're kind of managing all that? Because we talk about that a lot on this podcast, just because I have a lot of other income streams and trying to manage that whole thing and then also fund like my traveling lifestyle with other income streams. So I'd love if you talk about that some, like what you've done and how you've created that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've always been kind of jack of all trades person. And I remember at some point complaining to my therapist. This was, I think, when I first started grad school, that I'm doing so many things and they don't make sense and nothing goes together. And she was like, just keep doing it, keep exploring it. They will all come together at the right time.
Managing a successful private practice can be challenging, even if you have all the skills and experience you need to support clients. Most training programs offer little to no guidance on running your own business. That's why Alma gives clinicians the tools they need to build a thriving private practice. When you join Alma, you can get credentialed with major insurance payers within 45 days, as well as guaranteed payment within 2 weeks of each session. You can also attract clients who are the right fit for your practice with a free profile in Alma's searchable directory. As you build your caseload, Alma also offers time-saving tools and administrative support, so you can spend less time on paperwork and more time delivering great care to your clients. Visit helloalma.com/Kim to download your free guide to identifying and connecting with clients who are the right fit for your practice. That's helloalma.com/KYM to get your guide.
And so I really, throughout my 20s, allowed myself to just follow my interests. So I got yoga teacher training certified. I got Reiki certified. I did a lot of mindfulness training and mindfulness-based stress reduction stuff. I did coaching trainings. I was really into like the wellness industry in general before I even decided to become a therapist. Nice. I came from just like a holistic wellness background, interest in all of those things. And then when I became a therapist, I got really interested in sex and sexuality, and I'm a certified sex therapist. And so, that's been a really interesting journey and an interesting niche to explore. And within that niche, there's even more specificity. So I'm specializing in working with like sexual minorities, LGBTQ people who are really into BDSM and kink, people who are polyamorous and in open relationships.
Nice.
So there's not a lot of spaces for those people. And so part of what I'm doing is trying to create support and community, as well as bringing my wellness stuff into everything. So depending on the population and the organization that wants to work with me, I kind of tailor things to the interests, and I've done some really fun like things from like corporate workshops on boundaries and communication to like non-monogamy support groups. So so I have a lot of different ideas and things, but something I'm learning to move into is I've been working on and creating a lot of things that are passion projects that I don't get paid for, which is fun, but not reciprocal or productive at this point in my career. And so I'm moving into a space now where I'm really trying to work with people to create things where I'm going to have an audience, and I'm going to either get directly hired to create something, or there's a built-in audience. And that could look like a mindfulness retreat, a workshop, polyamorous relationship 101, weekend. There's so many possibilities, and I'm doing a lot of different things.
There's so many, because I'm already thinking like, because I've had a couple of clients that have been in like polyamorous relationships, and I don't know a lot about the dynamics, so I'm thinking like even education for therapists around that, because I tried to be open-minded and non-judgmental and help, but I don't really know all the dynamics around that anyway. So I'm thinking like, something that would be super useful just for therapists in general.
Yeah.
So when that comes up in session, Yeah.
There's a lot to learn. And I'm working on creating, I think, my next kind of course will be how the BDSM community, like what they can teach non-kinky monogamous folks about
Oh,
communication and good sex and, all the things. There's a lot we can learn from the community, even if we're not in it.
I love that. That's so
Yeah,
interesting. Yeah, there's
it's
so much you could do with that.
it's interesting for me, I'm trying to figure out because sometimes I'm really interested in creating content for like the clients. And then
Yeah.
sometimes I really want to create the content for the therapists. And there's a bit of crossover, but it's two separate audiences. And I'm still figuring out how to be like really clear on who I'm talking to.
Oh, I can relate to that.
Yeah,
Somebody
you
that has
run.
a different idea every day, it's like, okay, is this a good idea? Because I really have to build a whole new audience for this particular thing I want to do. Yeah, no, I totally get that. It's tough. That's the real struggle. I mean, especially when you have such a creative mind and just so many ideas. And right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. My
So
own
cool.
coach directed me to really focus in because another transition is that I just started my own practice completely.
Oh,
I
nice.
was
Okay.
working with a group and I just
Oh,
left and
nice.
now I'm totally on my, and so my coach was directing me, okay, like you have so many big picture ideas. It's wonderful, but you need to stop doing things that you're not getting paid for and
Mm-hmm.
write it down in an ideas journal and just focus in on, is this building my practice? That's the first thing that you're focused on. So
Yes.
I'm in the weeds right now with like referrals and posting in Facebook groups and getting listed on all the listing sites and all those strategies of the basic, just like building the client, like, the caseload.
Yes. Oh yeah. Oh, I totally get it. Oh my gosh. That's cool. So that's a big leap too, leaving the group practice and then going on your own with your own private practice while you're traveling and while you're like trying to figure all this out and trying to do the side hustles. That's a lot. Yeah. No wonder you feel a
Yeah.
little dysregulated. That makes sense.
Totally. Yeah. If we fast forward 6 months from now and I travel again, I could feel totally different about it.
Totally. I totally get that. I mean, I've definitely been in other places like when I'm like going through like product launches and stuff, it's like sometimes I'm like, why am I doing this? Like this is so crazy. Like I'm living out of this suitcase. We have to drive 12 hours tomorrow. I've got to do 3 lives in my Facebook group and
Oh
it's
God.
closing cart day. It's like yeah. I mean, I just can totally relate. Like I'm still trying to figure out the balance between that stuff. And sometimes it's awesome. And then other times it's like, what the hell am I doing?
Do you know your like Myers-Briggs type by any chance?
Yes, it's INFP, I think. What is that? Intuitive, feeling, percepting, and
And introverted, intuitive, feeling, prospecting.
yes, that's me. And it fluctuates between the E and the I. Like I've been very extroverted in my life and very introverted too. So, it's kind of crazy, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense. I was curious. I'm an ENFJ. Uh,
Okay.
and I think for P's, they're more flexible. From what I
Mm,
understand, they're more flexible about their environment and their routines and like really creative and kind of go with the flow externally. Whereas
yes.
J's are a little more rigid about needing the structure and the routine and the environment to be kind of the same.
So
And
interesting.
I mean, I love all those typing systems to just give a common language to discuss our different experiences. But I was curious because I think travel probably is a little easier in some ways for a prospecting person because you like that kind of like novelty and excitement. But then if it's too much, and it sounds like you do need some like grounding every once in a while, and you kind of question like, is this
Yes.
really great right now? I could really use like some routine.
Yeah, totally. And we try to make routines like in places we live. So we're always like trying to organize and like make sure we have a good system with stuff. Like that does help. But there are things that come up like, both my sisters with my nephews live back in Virginia and they live a couple hours apart from each other. And my dad lives there. So there's always like this, family stuff coming up, like baseball season. And,
Aw.
so I've tried to like FaceTime in and all that, but that is a part that I definitely miss, like just being able to hop in the car and go to a baseball game or, see my nephews grow up and that stuff. So, hearing you talk about, I miss my people and I feel a little bit lonely, like that totally resonates with me because I do go through little waves of that, so just to comment on what you're saying, like there's definitely a struggle between the, like, I love this is so fun. And then the, like, what the hell am I doing?
Yeah,
Why am I
right.
doing this to myself? There's definitely that struggle. And then, the solo, there's that whole piece, but then there's the partner piece. I mean, we work in the same house together. We travel together. We like, stress at different times. So it's a different kind of strain on your relationship too, when you're constantly on the road like that,
Yeah. So
Yeah.
do you two have a home base, or are you 100% traveling at all time?
100% traveling. Yeah. We don't have a home. We have like a storage unit that we pay for where we put all our stuff in.
Amazing. Yeah. So there's probably also, I would imagine, a pressure to always be planning.
Yes.
That is an added emotional labor layer that most people don't probably even think about.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's the constant, like, okay, well, we're only booked this many weeks out. Like maybe we should go through Airbnb and pick, which can, it's fun sometimes, but you really have to be in the mood for it because it's like, we've learned you have to like scour the listings. You got to look at, wait a second, is this a duplex? How thin are these walls? Can we park 2 cars there? There's like a whole investigative like process that comes with it. You really have to have the energy for it to do it.
Totally. Yeah, I get it. You have to read all the reviews. You have to look at the map and see where exactly it is. Yeah.
Exactly.
And you always have to assume that it's going to look worse than it does in the pictures. So it better have really good pictures.
Exactly. It's like, what are they doing with this picture? They're like a fish island. So, it's like probably teeny, they're like trying to make it look huge and it's not huge. Yeah. These are the things you learn over time. And still sometimes we'll show up at a place and we'll be like, how do we not look at how to washer and dryer? Like, how do we miss that?
Right. Oh my gosh.
Even though there's
details.
like a checklist and all of this, but that's part of it. That's part of it. So I just hear what you're saying. Like, there's the good parts and the bad parts, and it can be a little bit more stress personally and on a relationship if you're having to constantly do that kind of thing,
Yeah. It's funny how we always romanticize other people's lifestyles, but it doesn't matter how you live. You're human and there's going to be suffering.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
You have to pick your poison.
Exactly. Yeah. And I like how you use the eat, pray, love like analogy because like what female at least, I'm not to stereotype, but hasn't watched that movie and been like, that's so cool. Like, I totally want to do that. Like this year of self-exploration and just go where the wind takes me and all that. But there's a lot to that. And it's not always perfect like that. It's stressful, it can be hard, but really rewarding too. So
yeah. It's definitely an interesting adventure to make choices like that. It's cool that we can, like, as in our profession, there's a lot of cons about like we get to pay for our own health insurance and like there's so many things that are difficult about it, but the flexibility and the freedom is one thing that is just so beautiful and allows for so much possibility. And if you don't take advantage of it in some way, it feels like a tragedy because it's one of the perks, perks of the field. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that's like you were saying, you get into that self-judgment, like, oh, maybe I should be enjoying this more. Like I have this like freedom to really go live and work anywhere, but I don't like it. I want to go back home. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Ah, so cool. Well, so you're going to head back. I'm just curious, like with the trusted house sitter thing, do you have any tips around that? Because like after I did my last episode, I was like, I really want to look into this and see if it's something we can utilize too. But just for the listeners, I'm just curious, with your experience with that, has there been any pitfalls or like any tips that you might have for people that want to use that app?
Yeah, I have had a good experience. I think you, just like Airbnb, you have to really like scour the listing.
Okay.
And because you're dealing, like, there's also like pet sitting involved with a lot of it.
Right.
You really want to understand like the pet that you're going to be taking care of, because like for example, this little guy that I'm with right now is a kind of a puppy. He's got a lot of puppy energy. So that
Oh.
means he needs to be walked a couple times a day, and he wakes up and goes to bed a little crazy, and he needs to play and be entertained. He's not like an old dog that's just going to sleep in the corner all day. And when someone walks by the house, he's barking,
Oh.
which could affect sessions. And so there's
Hmm.
like things that you need to look out for. I think having a FaceTime conversation with the person first and asking all these questions is really important and
Oh,
helpful.
smart.
Because I just had a meeting with some people who I was thinking of dog sitting for back in LA, just because
Hmm.
they had a beach house and it would be like a little, like maybe a fun place to be. And I was imagining that I would have a friend come stay with me for the weekend. But after having the conversation, their dogs are like so territorial that they'd actually have to
Oh,
meet me in person probably twice before I could even like come in the house and stay there, and the dogs would accept me. So there's no
wow.
way I can have a friend over, which affects like the my stay and whether I want to do it or not. So yeah, I would just say ask a lot of questions about the animals that are
Okay.
there before you commit to it.
Such a good tip. Oh, yeah. I
Mhm.
never would have thought of that stuff. Wow. Thank you. Yeah. I'm allergic to like all animals. I'm like, I think you can filter out, right? So you don't always have to have pets, but there's a lot less options,
Yeah,
I guess. Okay.
there's a lot of people, there's some people who just want you to like water their plants, or there's a fish or something really easy, but most of it is like at least a dog or a cat.
Okay.
Uh, but there are
Gotcha.
some without it. It's
Oh,
just,
cool.
yeah, a lot less.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to check that out. And just for people that love animals, it sounds like a no-brainer. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're an animal person, it's great.
Yeah, that's so cool. Thanks for sharing about that. So, is there anything else I didn't ask you about, like with the solo travel and realizations you've had, or things that you think you could share that would be helpful to people? I mean, you've already shared so much.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's been an interesting journey. I'm a big try it person. Like it's an experiment. Life is an experiment. See what happens. You don't know, and you don't know what you don't know. There, you can anticipate what this might feel like till the cows come home, but until you just have the experience, you won't really know how you show up in that environment. So I just would encourage people who are curious or thinking about it or want to try it to just try it. And you don't have to be as dramatic as I am and do it for like 6 weeks spontaneously without a plan. You could
Yeah.
try it for a couple weeks and see how it feels to work in different spaces. But yeah, I mean, life's an experiment and we're all just on this adventure, so see what happens. That's my
Yeah,
two
I love
cents.
that. I love that. And just be really accepting of yourself, of the process and exploring it and how it feels for you. I think that's amazing. You don't have to be a full-time digital nomad to enjoy traveling and working and all that. Yeah, I really, really appreciate you coming today and just putting a voice to like that other side of the solo travel. And it can be lonely and people don't like it, and that's totally okay. Part of I hear that a lot. And part of why I created the traveling therapist membership is to like create like a community where we can go and do yoga together and Zumba together, and the private Facebook group where everybody can just really get deep if they want to and have a lot of support and safety around it. So I really respect what you're saying. And that's part of what drove me to do the membership to begin with, to give people like that place, like the home away from home kind of, you know?
Yeah, that's so beautiful. I mean,
Thank
as
you.
I think as therapists, we tend to be deeper feelers and thinkers, and we're the healers of the community. And so we don't always get a lot of space held for us. So we really have to create those spaces with each other. So that's really beautiful that you're offering that.
Thank you. Thanks for saying that. Yeah, I love how you just put that. So if people want to work with you, how would they get a hold of you? Because before we hit record, I was already talking. I was like, hey, would you want to come into the Traveling Therapist membership and maybe offer like a group Reiki session or something to the members? And she was like, I would love that. So that makes me really excited. But how can other people reach out to you if they want you to come to their workshops or retreats or just work with you personally? How do they find you?
Yeah. Well, you can always email me. It's hello@KayleeRoseTherapy.com. My website is kayleerose.life. That's KAYLEE. And I am on Instagram, but it's not a very professional page. I did the whole Instagram therapist thing for a long time and recently got really tired of it. So I changed it to memes and thirst traps. So you can find me on Instagram at KayleeRose.life also, and see me like post pictures of my tacos and
love that. Sounds fun. I'm going to go follow you right after this.
Nice. Yeah. Everything's on my website, contact info and everything. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thanks for talking with us today.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me. I'll see you in the membership, I'm sure.
Oh, yes, I would love that.
Thank you so much for listening to the Traveling Therapist podcast. For show notes, links, and downloads, head over to thetravelingtherapist.com, where you'll be able to learn more about my journey, the courses I've created for you, and other exciting resources to make your dreams become a reality. If you've enjoyed this episode, please share with your traveling therapist friends, subscribe to the podcast, and if you loved this episode, please leave a review.